Today we're talking Sega on Xbox. We're going to look at some of the games, some of the highlights, maybe some of the low points. Let's get stuck in. Hello and welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking Sega on Xbox. Now I'm obviously a massive Sega fan, but after the Dreamcast failed, Sega had to turn themselves into a third-party publisher for all the platforms. Sega did not release all of their games on all of the systems, the GameCube, the PS2 or the Xbox, after the Dreamcast sort of went under. They had a kind of a strategy to bring a lot of their exclusives to the Xbox. They remastered some Sonic games on the GameCube, and the PS2 got a lot of arcade ports. So it was an interesting strategy by Sega. They attacked all the different markets in a different way, and the Xbox actually had some of their best games, and some of the exclusives from Sega on the Xbox are some of the system's best games, not just Sega's best games. Now, I've got a bit of a relationship with the Xbox. Now, I liked it from the start. I remember my friend importing one from America when it first came out, and he had Tony Hawk's 2X, which was an updated version of Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 spliced together. And as soon as I played that and amped snowboarding, I was absolutely hooked. I'm a huge fan of extreme sports games, and playing those two on the Xbox, I thought it was amazing. Now, when I finally got an Xbox, which I think was about Christmas 2002 if memory serves, I got this pack which you can see behind me, which was a Sega pack, and it came with Jet Set Radio Future and Sega GT 2002. Now, I was blown away because obviously it's not a new Sega console, but it was the first time that we'd seen Sega games released with a console bundle since the Dreamcast. So I was really stoked to get that bundle, and it really made me fall in love with it quickly, because Sega were clearly trying to put some of their best efforts onto this system. I'm just going to go through some of the games. Now, the whole collection for the UK set of Sega games on Xbox is only 37 games, so I haven't achieved anything amazing. But I just think it's important to highlight some of these, because while everyone thinks that Sega at this time, around the turn of the century, were failing, actually they managed to adapt really quickly and became a third-party publisher more or less overnight, and started releasing out some absolute crackers. So that's a little bit of background for why I'm so stoked about having this little mini set complete. But I just wanted to go through some of the games and see what people think. So what's your experiences with Sega on Xbox? Make sure you let me know in the comments below, and I'm just going to start going through some of the games now. I'm kind of thinking it would take a while to go through all 37 games, so I'm not going to quite do that. But I did see a video from Scott Brand, aka Sega Zombie, recently, and he's done a set of his entire Dreamcast collection, which he recently finished, so congratulations, Scott. But he also then decided that he was going to show all the games, or vast majority of the games, through some videos. So I'm going to sort of take that style. So don't mean to steal your idea, Scott, but I think this is a great way of doing it. Just getting all the games together, going through them, and some of the better games, or some of the games that maybe didn't quite hit the mark, we talk about those in a little bit more detail, and we just gloss over the rest of them just so we can get through them. One caveat: I'm not going to talk about too many Sonic Team games. They're all here. Reason being is I'm hoping to do an actual video of Sonic Team in the 6th generation, so I'll go into a lot more detail about these games in another video, which might take me some time because it's going to be a bit of a beast. So I'll gloss over those when we get towards the end, maybe, because then people can switch off if they get bored. But let's have a look what we got. So I've got them all in alphabetical order here, but before I go through the main Sega games, I thought it'd be interesting just to talk about the sport games, because there's obviously lots of sport games coming out around this time for all sorts of systems, EA, Konami, all the usual ones. But Sega had started a series of games called the 2K games on the Dreamcast, and they're really good. And there's NBA, NFL and NHL, no baseball sadly, but they're really good, and they're right here, but I don't want to talk too much about them. I just wanted to sort of explain that this was a continuation of that series, and they're still really good. I mean, The problem with sports games is they get updated every year, they get better and better, bigger, broader, whatever you feel about it. But I think at the times, I was glad Sega continued this run of games because I absolutely love the NHL ones. I think they're really good. I like EA sports games as well, most of them, like FIFA and stuff, especially around that time. But it really was the Sega ones I really fell in love with. So I'm not going to bother talking about those because there's not going to be anything of particular interest there. But I do recommend the NHL ones if you really do like your sport games, especially at the time because the graphics on Xbox were so amazing that these games really shone out, and you could tell that Sega were pumping a lot of money into it. It must have cost them a fortune to get these licenses, for example. So just a little word about those. There was also a World Snooker Championships game that was distributed by Sega. It's an okay game. It's got Ronnie on the front, so that's good. And obviously, rest in peace, Mr. Hunter. So really good. That if you like snooker games, it's worthwhile picking up. It's the best snooker game. Probably not as good as Jimmy White's, but it's good. It's decent. I like a bit of snooker. I like a bit of darts too. But that's the sport game. So I just wanted to gloss over those pretty quickly. I didn't want to spend too much time on those. But let's get on to the actual Sega games, because Sega have got such a unique way of displaying graphics and sound, and you've got that real signature Sega style, and that followed on through from the Dreamcast right through into the Xbox era. So let's have a little start here. So Crazy Taxi 3 came out on the Xbox and the PS2 and the GameCube, so it wasn't an exclusive to the Xbox, but it's really, really fun. And anyone that likes Crazy Taxi, I'm not going to spend too much time describing it. It's a fun arcade game. I really do recommend this though on the Xbox over the others because it's just got slightly higher frame rates. It's just that little tiny bit better. The PS2 version is not particularly good. It's not awful by any stretch of the imagination, but I really like it on Xbox. Thoroughly recommend that. The next game is Jet Set Radio Future. Now, I do like my extreme sports games, but and people would say, oh yeah, you must love this one then. I do like Jet Set Radio. I don't really consider it an extreme sports game though, because you don't control the trips yourself. So while it's fun collecting all the spray cans and doing the missions and getting away from the future police and all that, it's great. This is a quality game though. The cel-shaded graphics, they shine out so well on the Xbox, especially if you can get it on a really nice like RGB SCART telly. It's really, really Sega-y. It's got everything about it that you'd want from a Sega game. Just massive bright graphics, pumping soundtrack, really fast action gameplay. This is probably one of the better games that Sega released. Not a particular favourite of mine, although I did play it. And it's actually by Smilebit, who are famous for the Panzer Dragoon series. So again, thoroughly recommended. Anyone hasn't played that and you are a fan of Sega games or a fan of the original Dreamcast one, yeah, go and get this one. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. The next game is a bit of a stinker actually. I'm not going to go over it too much. It's called Gun Valkyrie, and it's just like a third-person action game with this unique mechanic where you can kind of fly around a little bit. In honesty, it doesn't really work. I don't think Sega really nailed the controls on this one. It's not a bad game. It's not a bad game, but it's just very, very average, and it's a bit of a struggle to get through. I still haven't completed it after all these years, but you know, probably one you can skip by unless you're a real die-hard Sega fan. I just don't think it has that kind of Sega edge to it, unlike some of the others that we're going to get to in a little while. The next game is Headhunter, which is a sequel to Headhunter on the Dreamcast. This one is Headhunter Redemption. Again, it was on the PlayStation 2. I don't think it was on GameCube. No, I don't think it was. It's an okay game. It's an action game. It's fast and furious. There's nothing special about it though. Like, I think the one on the Dreamcast probably is slightly better, but they're very similar. If you're a real fan of sort of third-person action games with a little bit of adventure and puzzles and that sort of thing, then this is a good game, but not really one that I would jump to. But worth a pick up. It only cost a couple of pounds as well. Have a look at that one. Now then, this one is really good. The problem is it's a light gun game, House of the Dead 3. So unless you're going to be planning on a CRT, obviously it's not going to work on your LCD TVs, but there's an absolute corker. This in the arcade is brilliant. I know many people Many people will say they prefer the first and second ones, and that's absolutely fine. But I really like this one, and I remember getting this on the Xbox ages ago. And this was around the time when light gun games were kind of falling out of fashion a little bit. We'd had all the heights of Virtua Cop and Time Crisis, Point Blank, and all that towards the end of the century. And light gun games were starting to fall out of fashion a little bit, but Sega pulled it right back round with House of the Dead. Absolute classic, that. And if you've got an Xbox out with a light gun, if you haven't got this, you're crazy. Go and buy it. Now we get to two games that are, if you're looking at it, you could potentially say are the two best Sega games on the Xbox. Difficult one, but they're certainly right up there. These are must-owns for the system. If you have an Xbox and don't have these games, and you're a fan of action games, then you need to track these down. These are absolutely outstanding. I'm going to talk about them both at the same time because they're both very, very similar. And it's Otogi, Myth of the Demons, and the second one's called Immortal Warriors. Now, these are manic games. So it's just a standard third-person action game. You wouldn't think nothing special about it, but you can destroy buildings. It's a little bit like Shinobi meets Blast Corps on the N64. Now that sounds a bit strange, but bear with me. So you're this ninja guy with magical powers, pretty standard fare, but he's got massive abilities, and then you might come up to a part of a level where there's a big Japanese house, and you can just destroy the whole thing and chop down all the trees and everything, and it's really, really fun. It does get a little bit samey, but there's enough in it to keep it going. So I'd say people that are fans of like Devil May Cry or games of that kind of ilk would really get a lot out of this. And it's got that real Sega style to it. As I said, it's kind of like Shinobi meets Blast Corps. It's really, really, really odd. But I can't recommend these enough. If you have an Xbox and you're an action game fan, absolutely check these out. They're a little bit pricey now. Especially the second one. I think that's like sort of £20, but if you can pick it up cheap, honestly, you'll have an absolute blast. I've never shown this to anyone and they've gone, oh, that's rubbish, or I don't like it. They've always wanted to play like one more level and see how the character develops. So massive fan of those. Now, two more games that I'll do at the same time as well, because again they're fairly similar, but the classic Outrun. Now, Outrun 2 was an amazing arcade game that anyone that played in the arcade could not fail to enjoy. Is it as good as the original? Who knows? But if you're a fan of arcade racing games and you don't own this on either the game on the Xbox or the PS2, you're really missing out. There was a second one, Coast to Coast, which is similar. Different levels and stuff, but I actually prefer this one because it's got some cool features and there's some really cool modes like impressing the girlfriend and stuff. It's an absolute blast. The controls are amazing. It's got that Sega music, that Sega style, the graphics, everything about it just screams Sega. I absolutely love this game. I'm not a huge racing game fan, but arcade racers, this sort of game, Daytona, things like that, I do always end up falling in love with, especially when they're my beloved Sega. Can't recommend this enough. One of the best games of the 6th generation, and go and pick it up. It's not very expensive. Again, I'd recommend this one over the PS2 one, only because it probably runs slightly better, quicker load times. There's not really much in it. Coast to Coast, this is a very expensive game. It's probably about like sort of £40-50 now. Only get this if you're a die-hard Outrun fan. It's very good. It's not really much different to Outrun 2, just different levels, different tracks and a little bit more music and stuff. But yes, Outrun, definitely have a crack at those. Moving on to one of the more legendary games. Now, for some reason, this series of games it's crazy how this series just isn't sort of right up there with some of the best games, or seen as the best games of all time, like your Final Fantasies and the Zeldas and all that sort of stuff. And it's the Panzer Dragoon series. Now, anyone that's got a Sega Saturn will know how good these games are. Yep, the third one on the Sega Saturn, Panzer Dragoon Saga, is a little bit more of an RPG than an action game, but it's still really fun. But this one on the Xbox, when Smilebit, who are the developer, got their hands on an Xbox, they made this game. Now, if you like action games and you're a fan of shooting games, you have to own this. If you've got an Xbox and you haven't got this game, you're missing out on one of the best games. I wouldn't say the best games of all time, but certainly one of the best games of that era. Now, it's another one where people go, I've never played those, and you hear that a lot. I just think, how can you not have played Panzer Dragoon? It's some of the best games ever made. What I would say though is the style of this is an on-rail shooter, so again, maybe it's slightly more old-fashioned and people at this time maybe wanted something a little bit more. I'm not sure. All I know is that this has got amazing graphics, a really in-depth, interesting story. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's one of the most beautiful looking computer games you could ever play. It's really hard as well. There is an easy mode which you can smash through fairly easy. But yeah, when you play it on the harder modes, it's a real challenge, but it's not just hard and oh my god I can't complete this. You want to keep playing it, one more go, one more try. The great thing about this as well on the Xbox is if you do well enough and you complete the levels, you unlock the original Panzer Dragoon on the Sega Saturn, so it's double bubble really. If you own an Xbox, go and buy this game, and it's backwards compatible on 360 as well, and an Xbox One, so you don't even have to have like an original Xbox to play it. Check this out. I would put this in like top 10 games of the 6th generation. It's absolutely fantastic. And something I really need to get hold of, Sega released a special Panzer Dragoon Outrun Xbox at the time, and you know, if I could ever find one of those, they were exclusive to Japan though, so there wasn't very many made, but that's something on my list to get as well one day. But absolutely cracker. We move on to some racing games now that are a bit more realistic. Now, for some reason, Sega, as most people will know, are really known for their arcade racing, and they're very successful with the likes of Outrun and Daytona, Sega Rally, and all the rest of it. But they were trying to compete in a market around the turn of the century where things like Gran Turismo and a little bit later Forza Motorsport were very, very popular. This real simulation of realistic cars, like things like Project Gotham and Metropolis Street Racer as well would fall into this bracket, where the graphics were amazing, the handling was like real cars, and it was very reminiscent of like real driving. Sega had a crack at it with Sega GT, and there was an online version released as well. Now, I'm not a racing fan at all. I don't even drive a car, so the fact that this is really realistic probably doesn't really mean much to me. I have played others like Gran Turismo and Project Gotham and things like that, and I wouldn't say this is as good. I'm not really one to judge. I don't really know why Sega were trying to make a game like this. It's so out of character for them, but they tried it. I mean, the critics liked it. At the time, it got some good scores. I just think it's just not one of these realistic racing games that at that time were very popular, and there was lots of them coming out. But this is good. It's got lots of cars in it. It's got 125 licensed cars, so that seems like a lot to unlock. And it's got lots of modes and stuff, but I've played it just to try it out, and I can't get into it. It's not... I'm sure it's amazing, but I just think this is really difficult to control. Why do I have to go so slow in a little Fiesta when I could just play Outrun and go on a Ferrari? But yeah, I think people that would know more about it would probably say it's a really good game, but I'll leave that up to the people that are more in the know. Next game is more up my street, saying I've played a lot for some reason, even though it's not a very good computer game. Sega Soccer Slam. Now, people are probably going to be at home watching this going, oh god, what a rubbish game. And it is a bit rubbish. It's very silly. It's like it was a bit of a take on like Mario Soccer or FIFA Street and those arcade style football games. The Sega have got a good history of these. Their Virtual Striker series was really, really good, and anyone that played that in the arcade and on the Dreamcast would know, how fun it was. So they've kind of gone full arcade with this one though, and It's very silly. You've just got like 3 people on your team. It's not even 5-a-side, and you can do special moves and you can level up your characters a little bit and things like that. It's just fun action. It's really good 2-player. It's the sort of thing, if you come home from the pub, you just want to put on and have a few rounds on. And it's actually got a pretty fun like career mode where you've got to beat all the teams, and then you unlock more teams, and you unlock special boots for your players and stuff. And it's got that real Sega. It's like, it screams Sega. When I first played this, I got this originally. This was actually the last game to complete the collection, which come through today. But I've got it on the PS2 and GameCube. But when I was playing it on the GameCube, I absolutely loved it. I played it a lot. I played it for like almost the whole summer, just getting better and better and better. There's not much replayability though. If you like it, you'll play it. You might just smash through the campaign once and then go, yeah, that was a bit rubbish. But if you're a Sega fan and you like your arcade style games, this is absolutely brilliant. It's not going to change your world, but it's a fun one, and it's sort of good one that would have, if you're having a guests round and you're having a bit of a party, it's a good one just to pull out for like half an hour. So I'm a big fan of Sega Soccer Slam, even though I do realise its limitations, and yeah, just fun. Oh, we get onto another beast now. Obviously, everyone who loves their Dreamcast is probably a fan of the Shenmue series, and Sega was thinking, let's bring one of our biggest titles to the Xbox to really power it home, and they did. And they released, for some reason they didn't release both Shenmues. I think they could have just released both at the same time, but they released Shenmue 2 on the Xbox, and this is really good. I mean, the Dreamcast one's obviously amazing, but it's just better on this. The loading times are so much quicker compared to the Dreamcast version. This is just a joy to play, as much as the Dreamcast one is. I'm not a huge fan of Shenmue, but I've sat through both of them just because they're so iconic. And I was really glad when Sega decided, well, they were bringing most of their sort of ports and arcade games mostly to sort of like PS2 and stuff. But I liked it when they decided, no, we'll use the powerhouse beast of the Xbox to bring one of their biggest games alive, and they really nailed it with Shenmue. I can't speak highly enough of just the cinematics in this. Even the voice acting isn't that bad, and there's so much to do, and you've got to find the sailors, as everyone knows. So yeah, check it out. If you're a fan of Shenmue and you want to replay it, have a crack at this. I think this is backwards compatible as well. Yes, I've played this on my 360, so it's another backwards compatible one, so you can't go wrong with it. And it's lovely as well because this particular edition comes with the Shenmue DVD. It's like a movie of Shenmue. It's okay, it's interesting. There's one of those things in life where you're like, well, if you're a real fan of the series, you'll probably really enjoy it. But it's just a nice pack. It was a shame they just didn't do both of them. When I first heard about this, I just thought, why don't you just do both of them on the same disc or on 2 discs? But no, well done, Sega. Moving swiftly on, we get to some more action games. Third-person action game, Spartan Total Warrior. I really like this. I'm a fan of like Greeks and Romans and things like that. And this is just a button basher. It's just go fight the enemies. You're in a big team of people, and you have to just go traverse the levels, save the king, defend the castle. But it all spins on the same theme of just hack and slash the enemy to death. It's a bit simple and it's a little bit generic in the sense that it's and repetitive. But if you just like a hack and slash game, it's okay. I've sat and played it through a couple of times in my life. It's not bad. It's like a 7 out of 10 kind of thing, but if you're a Sega fan, it's really good. It's actually a spin-off of their Total War series, but it's not in depth like a proper strategy game. Don't worry, it's just a hack and slash game, but not bad. It's quite fun. It's just not varied enough really, and the level up is a bit pointless as well because you can end up just bashing the same button constantly, and the combos seem very samey. But yeah, it's okay. Here's a game I haven't spent too much time on. Again, this was one of the last games to get for me to finish this set. It's called Speical. I've had a quick go on it. It's a beat 'em up. It's trying to be a bit like a Streets of Rage, Cannon Spike type game. It's good. I'm enjoying it. I probably need to spend a little bit more time with it, but it seems pretty good from what I've played so far. There seems like some varied moves. There's a lot of lot of fighters in it. It says here there's 12 playable ones. I've only been playing it as one guy so far, and I think it'll be one of these ones a bit like Streets of Rage where it will really come to life when you've got 2 players. Sadly, I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but maybe one day. But I'm hoping to spend some more time with that, and I might try and get a video on about that one because it is quite an interesting one. Moving on to some classic Sega here, and I can never talk enough about how good this game is. It's Super Monkey Ball. I absolutely fell in love with this when it came out on the GameCube. It's got some of my best memories of gaming around the turn of the century. I mean, this version, which is the deluxe version, came out a couple of years later from the GameCube one. But I just remember sitting playing this with my friends all summer. The one on the GameCube, sorry. Excuse me. But this game is so fun. Now, I know it's one of these Marmite games where if you like these kind of games, you'll know how good this is. If you like your Mario Party or your Wii type games like Wii Sports and stuff, you'll know how good this is because you've probably already played it loads. If you're not a fan of like mini games, party games, just competitive natured games, and you want something a lot deeper, you probably won't get a lot out of this. But this is all about skill. So the main game, you have to kind of like, you know, make sure that your monkey ball guy can get through the finish line, and it gets really tough towards the end. I think there's something like 200 or 300 or something of these little mini courses, and they only take like 30 seconds to a minute to complete each, but they get really difficult, and all you want to do is do it, and it's just that one more go, beat the high score, beat the time. It's just got that Sega thing about it. The graphics are bold, the music's silly but funny and punchy, the characters are bold and got a bit of humour about them. It oozes Sega on every single level, and I felt they were getting back to their best when they released this initially. Is it for everyone? Definitely not. Is it for someone that loves Sega and just wants fun, action, arcade, quick pick up and play? 100%. This is one of the best games I think I've ever played. I absolutely love it. I play it all the time. It's just amazing. I should redo a video about it, but you know, there's so many out there. But yeah, 100% pick this up. Again, it's a few quid. It's such a cheap one. Moving swiftly on. Oh, I was torn when this came out. Oh my God, this destroyed me because not the game itself, but this should have been on the Dreamcast. I was glad when they finally got it out on the Xbox. I really was, because I was like, phew, at least we get to play it. Toe Jam and L3. But I really wanted this on the Dreamcast. I was absolutely gutted when they cancelled this for the Dreamcast. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my God, why are you not releasing this? You've got so far to completing it. But within the space of 6 months, they've turned it around and released it on the Xbox. Now, it's probably not the best Toe Jam and L game. Probably not. But it's fun. And if you love your Sega, you'll know how iconic these characters are. You've got that bad attitude. It really brings you back to the 90s. I love Toe Jam and L. I wasn't I can't remember the girl's name in this one. I can't remember now. It might be like Felicia or Tatilia or something, but she was quite fun as well. So this one, very similar to the other ones, just in 3D. You've got to collect all the parts for your ship, collect presents, scare the humans, all the rest of it. There's not really much different to the original Toe Jam and L, but it's just a fun blast. And in the 3D world, I think as a Dreamcast game, this would have been legendary. I think by the time the Xbox came out with all its additional power, this probably could have been better. But if you do actually just take your time and look around the world and try to look into the distance and stuff, it does become like a really beautiful world. The music's okay. It's probably not as good as you'd want it to be for a Toe Jam and L game, but I was just glad to get it when it came out, and I've had this since day of release, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, if you're a Sega fan, you've probably already got this. Moving on now, games that weren't developed by Sega, developed by Team 17, but distributed by Sega, is some Worms games. And now these are Worms like 3D ones. Now, yeah, everyone loves Worms. Not everyone. There's some people that obviously don't, but anyone that really enjoys Worms will know that these 3D ones, they're okay. They were trying to piggyback a little bit off, oh, a bit of a pun there, off the Hogs of War, which was on the PlayStation 1, which was a really, really good turn-based strategy game. Anyone that hasn't played Hogs of War, it's one of the best PlayStation 1 games, and is begging for a sequel, by the way. But these were trying to get on the back of that. I just think they should have stuck with where they were up to with Worms Armageddon and Worms World Tour, whatever it was called, and just carried on with that. But they tried to do these 3D games. Now, they're all right. Like they're not rubbish. But they're just a bit slow and a bit like the weapons are a bit rubbish. And I'm going to play a 3D turn-based tactical game. I'm just going to play Hogs of War because it's got more humour, it's got more to it. But yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend these. I think I'd struggle a little bit. But that's all those games. Now I just want to very quickly just mention, because it'd be rude not to, the Sonic Team games. Obviously, Sonic Team, my thing. That's what I go through. And they had this one, Puyo Pop Fever. Oh my god, Puyo Puyo. I'm not going to talk about it. I just absolutely love Puyo Puyo. They re-released Phantasy Star on the Xbox as well. So, interesting on the Xbox. I never got to play it online, so I think that's where I haven't really experienced this enough. I really do want to play it online, and I probably think you could probably find a way in the modern world, but I don't think this was as good as the Dreamcast versions. I just didn't get that. I'm not too sure. There was just something about it. You know, you had to play it online. You know, it was just wasn't too sure about it. Like, I think I remember just trying to go through the missions and stuff, and I was just a bit disappointed with it. Yeah, not one of the best ones. I think you have to play it online now, that's right. I think that's why I haven't been able to really get into it. I think you can play like the first mission or something without playing online. Oh, I'd love to, yeah. I need to research it a bit more. But yeah, I'm saying I probably need to do a little bit more research on it. It's a game I haven't had much time with that I probably should have. Sonic Riders, I like this. It's, you know, it's a racing game where you're on these weird hoverboard things like out of Back to the Future. It's Sonic, it's quite fun. I like the graphics and the music. It's a bit shallow, it doesn't really do much, but yeah, it's quite a fun one to pick up. Awful game. I'm not even gonna talk about that. That's just terrible. Sonic Heroes, and there was a classics version as well released. People really don't like this game, but I thought it was a really interesting style. Like didn't want to make another Sonic Adventure game, so they just thought we'd go for something a little bit crazy. I know it's a bit gimmicky. You know, you have these teams of heroes, and it's actually quite good to talk about this now because it's a bit like the Sonic team racing Sonic or the new racing game out where you've got to work as a team, and this is the same. So you switch, but you have a team of 3 people. You're running through the level. You've got to switch between them. Is it a great Sonic game? No, it's not really at all. But if you're a Sonic fan and you haven't sort of sat through this one, it's really worth a go. Once you get used to the mechanics, it's a pretty decent game. Oddly, this one actually does play better on the GameCube. I played this one and the PS2 one a lot, but I would recommend if you've got a GameCube, pick it up on the GameCube. For some reason, it just seems to run a bit better. There's a bit glitchy on the PS2 and Xbox One. I don't know why. It might just be something I'm imagining, but it just seemed to run a lot better. So, but yeah, good little Sonic game. And last but no means least, quite fitting really that we've got Sonic Mega Collection with loads of extra stuff, just a massive Sonic fest. You know, got all the Sonic games on there, loads of extras, loads of games. I mean, there's endless amounts of playability here. I tend to play the one on the GameCube a little bit more just because I've got a save file with everything on it. But I really like it on the Xbox because there's more games compared to the Xbox one, hence the plus bit. But that's all of the games that are on the Xbox that were released by Sega. So a real whistle-stop tour. I'm really happy to have completed this collection. I've been meaning to get it over the line for ages. It's not some massive achievement because it's only like 37 games, but it's just really fun. And at the end of the day, if you love your Sega, you've got to get it all. So that's the end of that really. I'd like to hear what people's thoughts are. I'd be really interested to know if anyone played the sport games actually, because that's something that you don't really hear about anymore, is those 2K games. So let me know in the comments. It'd be lovely to hear what people's thoughts are on any of the Sega games on the Xbox. But I've been Retro Faith. Thanks for watching and keep it retro.